When I used my late husband Marcus's insurance money to buy our dream farm, I never imagined my own son would order me to sleep in the garage. Stay hidden, Mom. If you embarrass us, I'm putting you in a home. But when Andre and his wife arrived with their lies, they had no idea the trap I'd set for them. I'm Dahlia Ellington, 60 years old, and this is the story of how my son tried to destroy me, and how I fought back, the inheritance that changed everything. 3 months after burying Marcus, my husband of 35 years, I was still drowning in grief. Our bed felt empty. The kitchen echoed with silence. Every corner whispered his name. Then came the surprise. A $500,000 life insurance policy I never knew existed. $500,000. More money than we'd ever had. For weeks, I couldn't touch it. The account sat frozen while I wandered through memories. Marcus had always talked about retiring to a small farm in North Georgia. Animals, vegetables, peace away from Atlanta's chaos. One day, my love, he'd whisper while holding me close. One day we'll have our sanctuary. But death stole that dream before it could bloom. So I decided to build it without him. For him, for us. For all those years we'd planned and hoped. The farm of dreams I found it 2 hours north of Atlanta, 150 acres of rolling hills, a babbling creek, and a 3-bedroom farmhouse with a porch made for sunsets. Horse stables stood empty, waiting for life. Gardens stretched out, begging for seeds, $350,000. The price left me with $150,000 for repairs and starting fresh. My hands trembled as I signed the papers that Tuesday morning. This was my first major decision as a widow, and somehow I knew Marcus was smiling down at me. That afternoon, bursting with joy, I called Andre. Mom? My 38-year-old son sounded surprised. He managed an insurance company in the city and lived with his wife Kiara in their modern condo. Andre, sweetheart. I have incredible news. I bought a farm. Just like your father and I always dreamed. It's beautiful, son. Room for everyone. You and Kiara can visit whenever. The silence stretched so long I thought we'd been disconnected. You bought what? His voice had turned to ice. A farm, honey. It's perfect. Wait until you see. Have you lost your mind? He was shouting now. What money did you use? Please don't tell me you wasted Dad's insurance on some stupid farm. Stupid. He called our dreams stupid. Andre, I thought you'd be happy. Listen to me very carefully, Mom. Kiara's voice murmured in the background. I'm coming this weekend, bringing Kiara's parents and some friends to see this farm. And here's what's going to happen. You're going to sleep in the garage. Got it? Kiara doesn't want her parents thinking we're poor. If you embarrass us, if you say one wrong thing, I'm checking you into a nursing home so fast your head will spin. The garage. Like a stray dog, Andre. I'm your mother. Why are you? You're a burden, Mom. You've been one since Dad died. That insurance money? Kiara and I had plans, real plans, not childish farm fantasies. Dad was my father. I had more right to that money than you. Kiara's laughter echoed behind him. We'll be there Friday. Have the garage ready. Don't embarrass us. Click. I stood frozen in my new kitchen, tears streaming, surrounded by unpacked dreams. But beneath the hurt, something ancient was awakening. Something Marcus had seen in me as a young woman. A fierce strength I'd buried under years of being the perfect wife, the perfect mother, the woman who always gave in. Andre had made a terrible mistake. Because if he wanted war, he was about to discover his mother was a warrior he never knew existed. The overheard conspiracy, the next 3 days passed in a strange blur. Outwardly, I unpacked and cleaned. Inwardly, I plotted. Wednesday morning, while preparing the garage, I found an old landline phone left by the previous owners. I plugged it in, thinking it might be useful. That decision saved my life. Later that afternoon, the house phone rang. The garage had an extension. By pure chance, I picked up at the exact moment someone answered in the house, Andre's voice. Kiara, it's me. Something in his tone made me freeze. I should have hung up. Instead, I stayed silent. Did you tell the old woman? Kiara asked dismissively. Yeah, she'll sleep in the garage. Cried like usual, but she'll obey like she always does. Kiara's laugh was cold. Perfect. My parents will be so impressed. How much did you say it cost? I told them $500,000, not the $350,000 she actually paid. Want them to think we're loaded. Smart. So when do we start the real plan? My blood froze solid. Give her 1 more month, Andre replied casually. Let her feel settled, secure. Then we begin the psychological pressure. You know those doctors who declare people mentally incompetent? My cousin's a psychiatrist. He'll sign whatever we need for $5,000. Brilliant, Kiara squealed. Once we declare her incompetent, you inherit everything as the only child. We sell this dump, keep the cash. What about her? Cheapest nursing home we can find. Old people die fast once you rip them from their homes. Problem solved. Their laughter stabbed through me like knives. You're evil, Andre. I love it. I learned from the best. Dad was too soft on her. I won't make that mistake. She's clueless and sentimental. Still thinks I'm her perfect little boy. I could rob her blind and she'd forgive me. The line went dead. I sat on the garage floor, phone trembling in my hands. The baby I'd carried. The child I'd defended. The son I'd sacrificed everything for. He was planning to steal my life and watch me die alone. But something else haunted me. I learned from the best. What did that mean? Marcus had never been cruel. Never. Marcus's secret files that night, I tore through unpacked boxes, Marcus's papers, old bills, family photos. At the bottom of one box, I found a folder marked Andre Confidential in Marcus's handwriting. My hands shook as I opened it. Letters, emails, notes, a paper trail of betrayal. Dad, need $10,000 urgently. Guaranteed investment. Pay you back in 6 months with interest. Don't tell Mom, you know how she is about money. Marcus's handwritten reply in the margin. Andre, this is the 5th time this year. What's really happening? The other 4 investments never returned a penny. I kept reading, my heart breaking with each page. 5 years of requests. Different excuses every time. Job troubles, medical emergencies for Kiara, investment scams, hidden gambling debts. Total, over $80,000. Never repaid. Never. Then I found the letter that shattered me completely, one Marcus had written but never sent. My dearest Dahlia, if you're reading this, I'm gone. There are things about Andre I never told you. I couldn't bear to hurt you. Our son is not who we think he is. He's lied, stolen, manipulated, but worst of all, he threatened me. Said if I ever told you the truth, he'd find ways to hurt you. That's why I stayed silent. Why I let him remain your perfect boy, but I fear for you, my love. I fear what he'll do without me there to protect you. Please be careful. Don't trust him. And remember, you were always stronger than you believed. Forever yours, Marcus. Tears soaked the paper as I finished reading. Marcus had known. He'd protected me by suffering alone. Outside, a car pulled up. Andre and Kiara, a day early. I quickly hid everything and ran to the garage. Through the small window, I watched them enter my house like they owned it, turning on lights, opening cabinets, planning renovations for when they'd steal it all. But I was no longer the crying woman from 3 days ago. Now I had evidence, proof, and a plan forming like a storm. They'd come to humiliate me, to start destroying my life. What they didn't know, their perfect victim had just died, and someone much more dangerous had taken her place. The dinner ambush Friday evening, Kiara's parents arrived in a gleaming Mercedes, dressed like money. 2 other couples followed. I watched from my garage prison as Kiara greeted them at the door like the lady of the manor, while Andre played the perfect host with that smile I'd seen 1,000 times, the fake one he'd used since childhood when he wanted something. Andre came for me eventually. Mom, get out here. Kiara needs you to cook dinner for 8. And for God's sake, change clothes. You look homeless. I was wearing Marcus's last anniversary gift, a blue blouse I treasured. But under Andre's contempt, I felt small. I entered my house and went to my kitchen while guests laughed in my living room. Andre was just explaining his brilliant investment, boomed Mr. Clayton. Kiara's father, a portly man with a gray mustache. $500,000 for property already worth $700,000. Smart eye for business. Kiara's musical laugh. My husband is so shrewd. Always finds the best opportunities. They were lying. Inflating the farm's value by over $300,000. Brazen. Shameless. I stayed quiet, preparing roasted chicken while listening to every poisonous word. And his mother? Asked one of Kiara's friends. Does she live with you? Awkward pause. Andre's voice heavy with false concern. My mother. Hasn't been mentally well since Dad died. We're taking care of her, but it's difficult. Oh, poor thing, someone murmured. So hard on you both. It is, Kiara sighed dramatically. But Andre is so patient. I couldn't do it. I stood frozen by the oven. They were painting me as senile, dependent on their charity. Martyrs caring for a burden. When I finished cooking, Andre inspected my work. He tasted the gravy and scowled. Too salty. Make it again. Andre, this gravy is perfect. I've made it 30 years this way. Your father loved Dad's dead, Mom. Our guests won't like it. Make it again and don't argue with me in front of them. Kiara appeared, sleek in her black dress and expensive jewelry. She looked me up and down with barely hidden disgust. Dinner ready? Our guests are waiting. Almost, I whispered, starting new gravy. Good. Her voice was honey, her eyes ice. Andre mentioned you've been forgetting things lately. Is it true you left the stove on yesterday? A lie. Complete fabrication. But I saw the game clearly now. I forgot nothing, Kiara. She exchanged a meaningful look with Andre. Well, we all age. Natural for the mind to fail. My mind is perfectly fine. Of course, dear. Condescending smile. That's why family support is so important. The explosion. During dinner, I was invisible. Serving plates, refilling wine, cleaning spills while they talked as if I didn't exist. Then Andre started his story about convincing his mother to buy the farm. I couldn't stay silent anymore. Actually, I said from where I was collecting plates, I decided to buy the farm because it was Marcus's and my shared dream for decades. The silence was instant and razor sharp. Andre glared daggers. Mom, adults are talking. I am an adult, Andre, and this is my house. Kiara nervously cleared her throat. Of course it's your house, Mrs. Ellington. Andre just meant, I know exactly what Andre meant. Just like I know exactly why you're all here. Mr. Clayton frowned, confused. Excuse me? Andre shot to his feet. Mom, leave now. Are you confused? Not at all. I looked directly at Mr. Clayton. Your son-in-law told you this farm cost $500,000, correct? He nodded slowly, tension crackling through the room. Interesting. Because I have the purchase papers right here showing I paid $350,000. I pulled documents from my apron and placed them on the table. Why would Andre lie about that? Kiara went pale. Mrs. Ellington, you're confused. I also have these. More papers. Documents showing Andre borrowed over $80,000 from my late husband over 5 years. Money never repaid. Mom, shut up. Andre screamed. But the guests were already reading, shock spreading across their faces. And most interesting of all, I continued, my voice calm as death. Yesterday, I overheard a fascinating phone conversation between Andre and Kiara about their plans to declare me mentally incompetent and steal my property. The silence was deafening. Only the kitchen clock ticking. Andre's ragged breathing. Kiara made a desperate play. This is exactly what we feared. One of her episodes. Andre, maybe call the doctor. Episodes? I laughed, harsh and raw. Still lying? Want to hear what you said 3 hours ago? I pulled out my phone, the one I'd used to record their afternoon planning session, and pressed play. Andre's voice filled the room, clear and cruel. The old woman's completely under control. By Monday, I'll have the psychiatrist's papers. 2 weeks, this farm is ours. Kiara's parents stood simultaneously, horror written on their faces. Andre, Mr. Clayton said, voice tight with fury. Explain, now. But Andre's mask had shattered. The devoted son was gone. In his place stood something I recognized from childhood, a boy caught in a lie, willing to do anything to win. She has no right to anything. He exploded. That money should be mine. I'm her only son. There it was. The truth Marcus had seen but never told me. My son didn't love me. He never had. I was just a source of money. And now that the well was dry, I was merely an obstacle to remove. The truth bomb. The dining room had become a battlefield. Guests frozen like statues, witnesses to family destruction. Andre breathed hard, fists clenched. Kiara desperately searched for escape routes. Andre, Mr. Clayton murmured, heavy with disappointment. What is this? My son ran hands through his hair, nervous habit since childhood. For one moment, I thought maybe he'd apologize, find some shred of conscience. But when he looked up, his eyes glittered with chilling rage. It means my mother is a manipulative old witch trying to ruin my life. This is all lies. She took that conversation out of context. Out of context? I couldn't help laughing. Andre, explain in what context it's acceptable to plan stealing everything from your mother and locking her in a nursing home. Kiara jumped up, chair scraping floor. This is ridiculous, Andre. Let's go. We don't have to tolerate these accusations. Sit down, Kiara. The voice came from Mr. Clayton, not suggestion, order. The man had been a judge for 30 years. His judicial tone automatically surfaced. I want to hear the rest of that recording. Dad. You don't have to, Kiara began. He silenced her with a look. I turned up the volume. Kiara's voice, clear as crystal. My cousin can sign the mental incapacity papers for $5,000. He knows judges who will help us. Mr. Clayton's face hardened to granite. His wife brought a hand to her chest. Your cousin, he said slowly. The psychiatrist? The one you introduced us to last year? Kiara had lost all color. Dad, I can explain. No. His voice cracked like a whip. There is no explanation for this. Andre wasn't surrendering. He approached me with menacing steps. For the first time in my life, I felt real fear of my own son. You know what, Mom? You're right. Yes, I planned it all. Want to know why? His voice got higher, shriller. Because you deserve it. Because you've been a burden my whole life. Dad and I constantly had to lie to protect your feelings. Pretend you mattered when you were really just nothing. Each word was a slap. But strangely, they no longer hurt. It's hard to explain what happens when you finally see someone for who they truly are. The Andre I'd loved, the son I'd sacrificed for, had never existed. Just an illusion I'd created to fill my heart's void. Did Marcus know? I asked softly. Of course he knew. He's the one who taught me how to handle you. Give her what she wants to hear, Andre. Easier than dealing with her dramas. Think he really cared about you? He tolerated you because he was too much a coward to leave. That lie hurt. Because I knew it was exactly that. A lie designed to wound. Marcus had truly loved me. His letters proved it. He'd kept silent to protect me, not because he didn't care. Dad loved you, Andre, I said sadly. That's why he never told me what you really were. Because he knew it would destroy me. Dad was a sentimental idiot. Andre screamed. And you're worse! One of Kiara's friends stood, an older, distinguished man who'd been listening silently. Excuse me, he said, turning to me. But you mentioned recordings of this conspiracy? I nodded, still watching Andre pace like a caged animal. And documents proving unreturned loans. All signed by Andre. The man nodded thoughtfully. I'm an attorney specializing in family law. What you've described constitutes several crimes. Conspiracy to commit fraud, attempted extortion, possibly others. Andre stopped dead. What are you saying? I'm saying your mother has enough evidence to file criminal charges against both of you. Kiara collapsed into her chair, finally understanding. Andre, you said this wasn't risky. You said it was harmless. Shut up! Andre screamed at her. Too late. Kiara's parents looked at each other. I saw the exact moment they decided. Mrs. Clayton spoke for the first time all night. Kiara, pack your things. We're leaving. Now. Mom, please. I said now. Her voice broke. And when we get home, you're explaining how we raised a daughter capable of this. Other guests stood uncomfortable, desperate to escape. Within minutes, the house was empty except for Andre, Kiara, and me. Andre approached one final time. I saw something in his eyes more terrifying than anger. Absolute coldness, as if I no longer existed to him. This isn't over, he said low. I'll find a way to take everything from you. I promise. No, Andre. My voice was firmer than it had been in years. This is completely over. I pulled out another set of papers from my apron, documents I'd prepared after finding Marcus's letters. These transfer ownership of this farm into an irrevocable trust. You are not the beneficiary. In fact, there's a clause specifically excluding you from any inheritance should you attempt to declare me incompetent or manipulate me in any way. Andre snatched the papers, reading frantically. His face went from shock to comprehension to absolute fury. You can't do this. I'm your son. No, I said with surprising calmness. A son doesn't try to destroy his mother. Doesn't plan to steal everything she owns. Doesn't threaten to lock her in a nursing home to die alone. Kiara had been reading over his shoulder. What does this mean? It means, I replied, when I die, this property and all my remaining money go to a charity helping elderly victims of familial abuse. Andre gets not one single cent. You vindictive old witch. Andre threw the papers on the floor. You always knew. You always knew you weren't a good mother. His words bounced off me harmlessly, like I'd developed invisible armor against his cruelty. You're right about one thing, Andre. I wasn't a good mother. Because a good mother would have set boundaries. Wouldn't have let you become this. They stormed toward the door, Andre muttering threats, Kiara crying and trying to reason with him. Before leaving, Andre turned one last time. This isn't love, he said with a cruel smile. This is pure hatred. No, Andre, I replied softly. This is self-love. The sanctuary after they left. I stood alone in my kitchen, surrounded by dirty dishes and half-empty wine glasses. But for the first time in months, maybe years, I felt completely at peace. I'd lost a son. But I'd found something infinitely more valuable, my own dignity. And this time, no one would take it away. The days following the confrontation were the strangest of my life. As if I'd woken from a decades-long dream where I'd lived for others while losing myself. For the first time in 60 years, I only had to worry about my own expectations. Monday morning, drinking coffee on my porch, watching sunrise over the hills, I heard a car on the gravel path. Panic struck first. Andre was back to fulfill his threats, but the blue car I recognized calmed my heart. David Hayes, the lawyer who'd witnessed everything Friday night. Mrs. Ellington, he said, getting out. Hope I'm not bothering you this early. Not at all. I invited him to sit. Coffee? I'd love some. He settled into one of Marcus's wicker chairs. I haven't stopped thinking about Friday night. I served him coffee in my mother's porcelain cup. I have a 75-year-old mother, he said softly. What I saw Friday reminded me how vulnerable older people are when family turns against them. I'm not vulnerable, I replied automatically. He smiled. No, you're definitely not. In fact, you're one of the strongest women I've ever met. But that doesn't mean you don't need legal protection. He explained that Andre and Kiara wouldn't give up. They'd try other ways to invalidate the trust, claim I'd been manipulated, coerced. But I have a better idea. His eyes twinkled with mischief. Let's preempt their moves. That afternoon, David returned with a full team. Forensic psychologist to certify my mental competency, accountant to review my finances proving no coercion, social worker specializing in elder abuse. This is excessive, I protested as they installed cameras in my living room. Mrs. Ellington, David said patiently, your son threatened you directly. Said he'd find a way to take everything. We have to be prepared. He was right. That very night, Andre called. Mom. His voice was different now, controlled, practiced. I've been thinking about what happened. We both said things we didn't mean. I meant every word, Andre. Mom, I know you're angry, but we're family. We can fix this. Fix what exactly? The fact you planned to rob me? Or that you wanted me locked away to die alone? Long pause. When he spoke again, all pretense of repentance vanished. You have 72 hours to reverse that trust transfer. Or what? Or you'll find out what I can really do when I set my mind to something. He hung up. David was right. Andre wasn't giving up. The siege next day, the attacks began. Phone calls at all hours, Andre alternating between tearful pleas and direct threats, then unexpected visits. He'd appear at different times, sometimes alone, sometimes with Kiara, always demanding to talk. Mom, open the door. I know you're there. Mom, this is ridiculous. I'm your son. Mom, if you don't open up, I'm calling Adult Protective Services and telling them you've been abandoned. But I didn't budge. David had advised no direct contact. Every visit was recorded by security cameras. Wednesday, Andre escalated. He arrived with a man claiming to be a doctor, shouting through the door about a court order to evaluate my mental state. Mrs. Ellington. The supposed doctor yelled, Your son is worried about your well-being. We just want to make sure you're okay. I immediately called David. There's no court order, he assured me after checking. That man isn't even a doctor. He's an actor Andre hired. Thursday night, Andre brought reinforcements. He arrived with Kiara, her parents, and two men I didn't recognize. This time they didn't leave. Mom, Andre yelled. These gentlemen are from Adult Protective Services. They're here because we're worried about you. I watched from my bedroom window. The officials wore cheap suits. One smoked a cigarette. Real officials would never behave like that. David, I whispered on the phone. They're here again. This time claiming to be government officials. I'm on my way. Do not go out under any circumstances. But Andre had lost patience. I heard a loud bang, someone ramming the back door. Then the unmistakable crash of breaking glass. They'd smashed my kitchen window. Mom! Andre's voice came from inside the house. Come out now, we just want to help you. I hid in my bedroom closet, heart pounding so loud I thought they'd hear it. Footsteps through the house, doors opening, my name being shouted. We know you're here, Mom. Your car's outside. Kiara's voice. Andre, this is wrong. We're committing breaking and entering. Shut up. She's my mother, and this is the house that should be mine. Footsteps getting closer to my bedroom. Then, sirens. David had called police. Police. Everyone out with your hands up! Shouting, running footsteps. Doors slamming. Silence. When I finally emerged from the closet, David was waiting in the living room, surrounded by officers. Are you okay? He asked, checking me for injuries. I'm fine. What happened to Andre? Arrested. Breaking and entering, property damage, harassment. Kiara, too. I sat heavily on my sofa, trembling from adrenaline. How did you know they were coming? The cameras connect to my phone. I saw everything. He showed me his phone with the recording of Andre smashing the window. This plus all the phone threat recordings should get a permanent restraining order. That night, alone in my house with temporarily repaired windows and new locks, I realized something. Andre had crossed a line from which there was no return. No longer just greed or manipulation. Real violence. My son had become a physical threat. But strangely, I didn't feel fear. I felt power. Power to decide my own fate. To protect myself. To say no and have it respected. Andre had come to take everything. Instead, he'd given me the most valuable gift imaginable. The opportunity to discover who I truly was when no one else had power over me. And this time, no one would take that away. Rebirth 6 months after Andre's arrest, I woke on my farm as I did every morning, in complete peace. Sun filtered through new curtains with yellow flowers Marcus would have loved. I no longer lived in a house full of painful memories. Now I had a home completely mine. The restraining order was permanent after the trial. Andre got a year probation for breaking and entering plus harassment. Kiara, surprisingly, cooperated with authorities for a reduced sentence. During the legal process, she revealed more details about Andre's plans, including his intention to drug me to fake dementia. I never thought he'd go that far, Kiara testified through tears. At first, it was just talk about money, but then he became obsessed. Said you'd stolen his inheritance. Kiara's parents completely distanced themselves. Mr. Clayton, the former judge, came to apologize personally. We raised our daughter to be better than this, he told me on the same porch where it all began. You're not responsible for Kiara's choices, I replied, just as I'm not responsible for Andre's. It was a healing conversation for both of us. This particular morning was special. First anniversary of buying the farm. I'd decided to celebrate it the way Marcus would have approved. David arrived early, as promised. In recent months, he'd become not just my attorney, but a genuine friend. He brought Sarah Jenkins, director of an organization helping victims of family abuse. Dahlia, Sarah said, surveying my property. This is perfect. During months of emotional recovery, I'd been thinking about the rest of my life. I was 60, healthy, with more money than I needed to live comfortably. But more importantly, I had experience in something no one wants. I knew what it was like to be betrayed by your own family. Are you sure this will work? I asked as we walked toward stables I'd converted into small cottages. It'll work, Sarah assured me. Many older women are in similar situations, women who need a safe place to rebuild their lives. I decided to convert my farm into a temporary refuge for elderly women victims of abuse or family abandonment, not a large institution. Not a complex organization, simply a place where women like me could find peace, security, and time to heal. The Haven. The first 3 residents arrived that afternoon. Margaret, 68, thrown out by her son after he got married. My daughter-in-law said I was a burden. 40 years in that house and they threw me out like a dog. Elaine, 72, victim of financial abuse by her grandchildren. They used my credit cards to buy a car. When I confronted them, they said I was senile and didn't remember giving permission. Rose, 59, escaped a situation where her daughter had been drugging her to control her behavior. I thought I was going crazy until my neighbor saw my daughter putting something in my food. Listening to their stories, I realized Andre wasn't isolated. Elder abuse by family members was more common than I'd imagined, but I also realized something more important. None of us had to accept it. This is a place where you can take all the time you need. I told them during our first dinner together. No rush, no pressure. Only healing. David had structured everything legally so the refuge was self-sufficient. The trust provided funds for maintenance and small stipends for each resident. Not charity, justice. The first months were challenging. Margaret suffered panic attacks. Elaine developed deep distrust of all banks and legal documents. Rose had constant nightmares, but slowly, with patience and mutual support, we began healing together. Margaret discovered a talent for gardening, turning a vacant plot into a thriving vegetable patch. Elaine, formerly an accountant, took charge of the refuge's finances with impressive meticulousness. Rose, a former teacher, started teaching literacy classes in the nearby town. Each found her purpose again. I found mine too. One autumn afternoon, while watching Margaret work in the garden, my phone rang, unknown number. Mrs. Ellington? Young, nervous voice. I'm Patricia Wilson, social worker from General Hospital. We have a 75-year-old woman here beaten by her grandson. We were given your number as possible refuge. Of course, I replied immediately. When can you bring her? This afternoon. She has nowhere to go and the grandson is still threatening her. We'll be waiting. That night, helping the newest resident, a fragile woman named Carmen, settle into her cottage. I thought about the road I'd traveled, a year ago. 60-year-old woman who'd lost her husband, believing her only purpose was being a good mother to a son who didn't love her. Now, director of a refuge that had helped 8 women rebuild their lives. A woman who woke every morning with clear purpose. Someone who'd found strength in places she never knew existed. The final word. 3 weeks later, David arrived with news. Andre wants to see you, he said over coffee in the kitchen. Why? Says he wants to apologize? His probation officer says he's been attending therapy, seems genuinely remorseful. I considered it for a moment. Part of me, the part that had been a mother for 38 years, felt a flicker of hope. Maybe Andre had truly changed. Maybe he'd learned. But then I thought of Margaret, Elaine, Rose, Carmen, and all the other women who'd passed through my refuge with similar stories. I thought of the excuses they'd heard, the empty promises of change, the second chances that became new opportunities for abuse. No, I finally said. I don't want to see him. Are you sure? David, I interrupted softly. I've learned that forgiveness doesn't require reconnecting with the person who hurt you. I've forgiven Andre in my heart, but that doesn't mean I have to allow him back into my life. He nodded, understanding. Want me to relay a message? Yes, tell him I hope he finds peace and healing. But he'll find it without me. That night, I sat on my porch as I did every sunset, watching lights turn on in the cottages where my residents were preparing dinner, reading books, or simply enjoying the silence that comes with security. My phone vibrated with a text from Elaine. Thank you for giving us a home where we can be ourselves again. I smiled, slipping the phone back into my pocket. Marcus had dreamed of a farm where we could live in peace. I'd created something better, a place where women who'd lost their peace could find it again. 1 year later, the harvest. The refuge had grown beyond my wildest dreams. What started with 3 residents had expanded to accommodate 12 women at a time. Some stayed for months, others for just weeks until they found their footing again. Each had a story that made my heart break and my resolve strengthen. Dorothy. Her son had forged her signature to take out a reverse mortgage on her home. By the time she discovered it, she was days away from eviction. Linda. 66. Her daughter's boyfriend had moved into her house and refused to leave, eventually turning violent when she tried to call police. Yolanda. 58. Her entire family had convinced her she had Alzheimer's, gaslighting her so severely she'd almost believed it herself, all to gain control of her retirement savings. But the refuge gave them more than shelter. It gave them something I'd discovered for myself: the power to reclaim their own narratives. We created a system. David's law firm took on pro bono cases for residents who needed legal help. Sarah's organization provided counseling and support groups. Local volunteers taught practical skills: computer literacy, financial management, even self-defense classes. The farm itself became therapeutic. Margaret's garden had expanded into a full vegetable operation that supplied a local food bank. Rose's literacy program now served the entire county. Elaine had established a financial literacy workshop that helped elderly people across Georgia protect themselves from exploitation. My women weren't victims anymore. They were warriors, teachers, guardians for others who might face similar battles. The unexpected visitor, it was a crisp October morning, almost 2 years after I'd bought the farm, when a car I didn't recognize pulled up the driveway. A young woman stepped out, mid-20s, nervous energy, clutching a manila envelope like a lifeline. "Mrs. Ellington?" she called out. "That's me." I set down my gardening tools and walked over. "My name is Jessica. I'm Andre's daughter." The world tilted slightly. "Andre's daughter?" "I didn't know he had a daughter." She saw my confusion. "He doesn't know about me. My mom, Kiara, she was pregnant when they got arrested. She never told him. Never told anyone." My hand found the porch railing for support. "A granddaughter. I had a granddaughter I'd never known about." "I'm not here to cause trouble," Jessica said quickly, reading my expression. I needed to meet you, to understand." We sat on the porch and Jessica told me her story. Kiara had given birth in secret, given the baby to her parents to raise. She'd told Jessica the truth only 6 months ago, on her 18th birthday. "I've read everything about the trial," Jessica said quietly. "Court documents, news articles. I've listened to those recordings." She looked at me with eyes that reminded me painfully of Marcus. I needed to know if my father really was the monster everyone said he was. "And what did you conclude?" I asked gently. "That he was. That he is." Tears welled in her eyes. "But I also needed to meet you, to see if you were the woman he described, weak, pathetic, manipulative, or someone else entirely. And?" She smiled through her tears. "You're nothing like he said. This place, what you've built here, it's incredible. You turned your pain into purpose." We talked for hours. Jessica told me about growing up not knowing her real father, about Kiara's parents raising her with love and honesty, about discovering the truth and feeling like her entire identity had been a lie. "I don't want anything from you," she said as afternoon shadows grew long. "I'm not here for money or property or anything like that. I wanted you to know I exist, and that I'm nothing like him." I reached over and took her hand. "You're not responsible for your father's choices, Jessica. Just like I finally learned I wasn't responsible for the son he became." She squeezed my hand. Can I visit again sometime?" "Anytime you want. You're always welcome here." As I watched her drive away, I felt something I thought I'd never experience again: hope for family. Not the family I'd been born into or had created, but the family I was choosing. The media stormed 3 months after Jessica's first visit. Everything changed. A journalist named Rebecca Martinez reached out. She'd heard about the refuge through Sarah's organization and wanted to do a story. "I promised to be respectful," Rebecca assured me during our first phone call. "But I think what you've built here, what you've survived, could help so many people." I was hesitant. The last thing I wanted was to become some kind of public spectacle. But Rebecca persisted, and eventually, I agreed to one interview. That interview went viral. Within 48 hours, my story was everywhere. National news, social media, morning talk shows. The headline that kept appearing, "From Garage Prison to Guardian Angel: How One Woman Turned Family Betrayal into a Haven for Abused Elders." My phone wouldn't stop ringing. Emails flooded in by the hundreds. Most were supportive, people sharing their own stories of family betrayal, offering donations, asking if we had space for their mothers, aunts, grandmothers. But some messages cut deep. Andre sent an email from a public library. He wasn't allowed to contact me directly, but he found a way. "You're enjoying this, aren't you? Destroying my reputation, playing the victim. You always were a manipulative. I deleted it without reading the rest. David assured me it was grounds for additional charges, but I declined. I was done giving Andre power over my emotions. More painful were the messages from people who defended him. Every story has two sides. You're probably a toxic mother who drove him to desperation. Those hurt. Even knowing they came from strangers who didn't know the full story, they still hurt. But for every hateful message, there were dozens of supportive ones. Women sharing their own stories of family betrayal. Men apologizing on behalf of terrible sons. Adult children thanking me for giving them language to describe their own toxic family dynamics. One message stood out. From a woman named Patricia. My brother tried to do to our mother exactly what your son tried to do to you. But she didn't have your strength. She believed him when he said she was losing her mind. She died in a nursing home 6 months later, confused and alone. Thank you for fighting. Thank you for surviving. You gave her death meaning by making sure it doesn't happen to others. I printed that message and put it on my bedside table. On hard days, I read it to remember why this all mattered. The foundation, the media attention brought something unexpected. Funding. Donations poured in. Small amounts from people who'd experienced similar situations. Larger checks from foundations dedicated to elder rights. One anonymous donation of $100,000 that made me cry for an entire afternoon. David helped me establish the Marcus Ellington Foundation for Elder Justice, named after my late husband, who'd protected me even in death through the letters he'd left behind. The foundation expanded the refuge from 12 residents to 20. We purchased the neighboring property and built more cottages. We hired a full-time therapist, a nurse, and a legal advocate, but more importantly, we created a hotline. A place where elderly people experiencing abuse could call, be believed, and get help. Within the first month, we received over 300 calls. The stories were heartbreaking. Sons stealing Social Security checks, daughters demanding their mothers sign over property deeds, grandchildren running up credit card debt, entire families conspiring to declare competent elders unfit. We couldn't help everyone. But we helped some. And some was better than none. One call stood out. An 82-year-old man named Robert whose son had locked him in his own basement, stealing his pension checks and telling neighbors the old man had gone to live with relatives. Robert had managed to call 911 from an old cell phone he'd hidden. Police rescued him, but he had nowhere to go. We don't usually take male residents, I told Sarah when she brought me Robert's case. I know. But Dahlia, he has no one. No other family. No friends left alive. If we don't help him, he goes to a state facility where— Bring him here, I interrupted. We'll figure it out. Robert arrived 3 days later, frail and traumatized, but grateful. I never thought my own son, he kept saying over and over. My own boy. I understood that pain intimately. We converted the old barn into a separate cottage for Robert. Within weeks, 2 more elderly men joined him, both with similar stories of family betrayal. The refuge was evolving into something bigger than I'd imagined. Not just a women's shelter, but a true sanctuary for anyone whose family had become their enemy. The Confrontation Part 2. It happened on a Tuesday, 18 months after the trial. I was in town buying supplies when I saw him across the parking lot, Andre. His probation had ended. He was legally allowed to be there, but seeing him made my heart race with an emotion I couldn't quite name. Not fear, not anger, something more complex. He saw me too. For a moment, we both froze. Then he started walking toward me. Every instinct screamed to run, to get in my truck and drive away. But something made me stand my ground. David's words echoed, "You're one of the strongest women I've ever met." Andre stopped about 10 feet away. He looked older, thinner, dark circles under his eyes. The expensive clothes were gone, replaced with a worn jacket and jeans. "Mom," he said quietly. "Andre." My voice was steady. I was proud of that. I'm not here to cause trouble. He ran a hand through his hair, that old nervous habit. "I've been wanting to talk to you. We have nothing to say to each other. Please. Just 5 minutes." Against my better judgment, I nodded. We walked to a bench near the parking lot entrance. "I've been in therapy," Andre said, staring at his hands. "Court-ordered at first, but I kept going after. Trying to understand why I did what I did." I said nothing. "The therapist says I have some kind of personality disorder. Narcissistic traits or something? Says it probably started when I was young, got worse over time. He looked up at me. I'm not making excuses. What I did was unforgivable. I know that. Then why are you here, Andre? Because I'm broke. Kiara left me. I lost my job. Can't get another one because employers Google my name and find all the news articles. His voice cracked. I'm living in my car, Mom. There it was. The real reason for this conversation. And you thought you'd come to me for money? I couldn't help the bitter laugh. After everything? No, I mean, yes, but he struggled with the words. I know I don't deserve your help. I know I burned that bridge. I needed to see if there was any part of you that could maybe still love you. I finished for him. He nodded, tears in his eyes. I took a deep breath, choosing my words carefully. Andre, I will always have love for the child you were. The little boy I raised before everything went wrong. But the man you became? The man who tried to destroy me? I have no love for him, so that's it. I'm just supposed to live in my car and starve? You're supposed to take responsibility for your choices. Get a job, any job. Stop expecting other people to fix your problems. Stop seeing yourself as a victim of my cruelty when you're really a victim of your own actions. Andre's face hardened. There it was, the flash of anger I remembered so well. I knew it. You haven't changed. You're still the same cold, heartless— No, Andre. I stood up. I have changed. I've learned that love without boundaries isn't love at all. It's enabling. I've learned that I don't owe you my suffering just because you're my son. And I've learned that the best thing I can do for you is refuse to be your safety net. I started walking toward my truck. Mom, wait, he called after me. I'm sorry. I'm really sorry. I turned back one last time. I believe you're sorry, Andre. Sorry you got caught. Sorry you're facing consequences. Sorry your plans didn't work. But until you're sorry for the pain you caused, truly sorry, not just sorry for yourself, we have nothing more to say. I drove away, watching him get smaller in my rearview mirror. I didn't cry. I felt sad, but also liberated. Some relationships are toxic even when they're biological. Some people can't be saved by love alone. And sometimes the bravest thing you can do is walk away. Full circle that evening, I sat on my porch surrounded by my chosen family. Margaret was shelling peas, telling Dorothy an elaborate story about her ex-daughter-in-law that had everyone laughing. Rose was teaching Jessica, who'd become a regular visitor, how to can preserves. Elaine was reviewing the foundation's finances with David, who'd stayed for dinner. Robert emerged from his cottage with 2 other male residents, carrying a bench they'd built together as a gift for the garden. This was my family now. Not perfect, but real. Built on mutual respect, genuine care, and the shared understanding of what it meant to survive betrayal and choose to keep living anyway. My phone buzzed. A text from Sarah. New resident arriving tomorrow. 70-year-old woman whose grandson emptied her bank account. She's terrified but hopeful. Thought you'd want to know. I smiled and typed back, We'll be ready for her. Because we always were. Marcus had given me his insurance money and a dream of peace. Andre had tried to steal both. Instead, I'd created something neither of them could have imagined. A legacy of protection. A sanctuary of second chances. A testament to the fact that being knocked down doesn't mean staying down. The sun set over my 150 acres, painting the sky in shades of orange and gold. Laughter floated through the air from the dinner table. Somewhere in the distance, I could hear Margaret's vegetables rustling in the evening breeze. This was peace. Real, earned, protected peace, and no one, not Andre, not anyone, would ever take it from me again. Epilogue. 5 years later. The Marcus Ellington Foundation now operates 3 refuge properties across Georgia. We've helped over 200 elderly victims of family abuse rebuild their lives. Jessica graduated college with a degree in social work and now works full-time for the foundation. She calls me Grandma Dahlia, and it's the sweetest sound I've ever heard. Andre attempted contact twice more over the years, both times asking for money, both times receiving the same answer. No. Last I heard, he was working at a warehouse in another state. No longer my problem to solve or my burden to carry. Kiara occasionally sends cards during holidays. Awkward, stilted messages that feel more like obligation than genuine sentiment. I don't respond, but I don't throw them away either. They're reminders of how far I've come. The farm Marcus and I dreamed of became something better than we imagined, not just a peaceful retreat for two, but a healing sanctuary for many. I'm 65 now, healthy, happy, surrounded by people who chose to love me and whom I chose to love back. Sometimes I still miss Marcus. Still talk to him while working in the garden, telling him about the lives we've changed, the women we've saved, the legacy we've built together even though he's not here to see it. But I think he knows. Somehow, I think he knows, and I think he's proud. Dear reader, wherever you are in the world, I hope my story reminds you, it's never too late to reclaim your power. It's never too late to say no. It's never too late to choose yourself. Family is supposed to be a source of love, not pain. And when it becomes the latter, you have every right to walk away and build something better. This is Dahlia Ellington, signing off from my farm in Georgia, reminding you that the strongest thing you can do is survive. Thrive and help others do the same. Which city are you reading from? I'd love to know how far my story has traveled. Drop a comment and let's connect. Your story matters too. If this resonated with you, consider supporting similar causes in your community. Elder abuse is more common than we think, and victims need our help.